All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindful Moments, State of the Black Male with Dr. Moise, and I have Dr. Tequilla Hill here with me again. And we have a special guest, Randy Viestris, with VBody Power Fitness here in Chicago. Welcome, Randy. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us.
I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, what brought you to your chosen profession?
Funny enough, I was one of those few people that knew in like the 7th grade, it was what I wanted to do. Basically, I used to be in military school, and at this military school, there were a bunch of guys who eventually turned into professional athletes that used to make me lift weights all the time, and I couldn't lift the bar. And eventually one day I was able to lift the bar, and I was like, man, this is what I want to do. But literally, I've been doing it since I was officially certified as a trainer as a junior in high school. And I've been literally doing it for 22 years at this point.
Oh, wow. That's interesting because a lot of kids don't know what they want to be when they're younger. So for you to kind of know like, hey, this is my passion, this is what I want to do, and for you to have those guys helping you out and cheering you on, that's a testament to them and their mentorship to you.
Yeah. I especially like that's something I could have looked at as been like negative, like you turned it around and you found the wisdom and like you're calling in it. That's really
right.
Interesting. Yeah. So Randy, share your experience with us as a Black man navigating through the health industry. What have been some of your struggles and what have been some of your biggest like triumphs?
Oh man, that's a real loaded question. You know, I spent a lot of years in the corporate world, and to be honest, it is a bit whitewashed to say the least, because most places I go in, I'm usually the only Black person in there, and there's been different places where I've kind of made a fuss about, hey, where's the diversity at? But number one, having I actually have I look very good on my resume. So usually I get calls because of my resume.
And what's on that resume?
So I did personal training at a gym on Wall Street, but I also did a lot of corporate fitness in like places in New York, like Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, New York Stock Exchange. I managed a gym in Harlem. Even in Chicago, I've worked at companies like Skadden, Leo Burnett, Movement Worldwide. So I've done a lot of corporate places that I've been in. So when you see my resume, and I have a master's in this, I got the top certifications you can have. So and you hear my last name, so I feel like that's kind of what gets me in the door in the beginning. And when I come in, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Did you really do this? Did you really do that? And I'm like, and there's even been points in interviews, I'm like, just call the places. Don't let me come in and then you ask me, did I do it? Call everybody and figure it out. But yeah, so it's been very interesting because just seeing the other side of, like, there's a couple of instances. I think about when I first moved here, I worked at a company and I was so excited to be there, but their first instinct on seeing me, it was very negative. And it's almost like I was in a management role, but they were treating me like I didn't know anything. And even to the point where I was seeing things as a manager that were going on to the employees that so happen to be Black that I would end up speaking on. And a lot of places that I've been at, I've spoke on something where I'm like, okay, I see this, but why is this being this way? And then why is something else going on another way or whatever? But to answer your question, it is very interesting. I do it independently now, so it's not as bad. But when I worked for corporate fitness companies, it was a little bit tough because they want to underpay you. You literally have to be 10 times better than everybody in the room. And even though you're 10 times better, you're still looked at as the lowest in the room. And after a while, it becomes very frustrating. And for me as a country boy, I'm a person that can look past all that stuff, but over time it kind of creeps in there. It's like, man, how do I beat this? And eventually I found out being an independent contractor for companies end up happening. And like, for example, I won't name the company because I don't want them to come after me, but I worked at this company in Chicago where I came in. I usually have more experience than everybody. And I'll tell you why. When I was in college, I told you I was certified as a personal trainer since high school. But even when I graduated, I worked at personal training clinics. I did all that. But when I was graduating, I was looking for jobs. I was told that I needed more experience, over 7 years experience, to work in the corporate world. So I was like, okay, let me get this experience and come back. But when I came back to the corporate world, I realized they were pulling people straight out of college. And I'm like, wait a minute, how does that work? So because of that, usually when I come on board of a corporate fitness company, of course I'm going to be, higher. I'm going to know everything. I know more than what they know, just because I've just had more experience, and what ends up happening is I'm teaching them how to do things. And some of them are upset just because I may know more. I don't know. It's which is a touchy thing. It's kind of like, now, so at this company, it was kind of like, the first question they asked was, have you ever worked with people in this environment before? And for me, it's like, did you look at my resume? Yes, I've done this in some of the biggest spaces in the world, in the corporate world. And then it was kind of like, oh, how'd you get so good at this? Because I've been doing it for so many years. And then it would be like little passive insults, which happens in the corporate fitness world. And it's kind of like I at this company, there was someone that went to the same place I got my master's from. And one of the staff was like, oh, you went to college? And I'm like, in corporate fitness, you can't work in any of the corporate places if you don't have an exercise science degree. And then I think the final straw there was they offered me a permanent position, but the pay was so low, I literally laughed. I went to teach my class and I was like, I'm never coming back here again. So what happened was the members of the company, because you got the company, and then you have a corporate fitness company that works in their fitness space. So they might build out a gym, and it saves the company a tons of money in health insurance, because they say we have someone managing the fitness facility, they're being educated. So the company overall saves a lot of money in health insurance. But what happened was the members, they ended up calling me and getting me connected with the benefits manager. And then I was working independently. So I didn't have to directly deal with the corporate fitness staff, which at the end of the day, I love it now. And that's one of the places that I was at. But I love it now because, I deal directly with the people. They're excited that I'm there. But I do feel sorry for a lot of the young Black men and women that start in that profession. Because to be honest, when you get an exercise science degree, the best place to work at is a corporate fitness company, because they pay you a salary versus a commercial. You think about LA Fitness, you think about Export, those places. You are literally, it's a whole different setup. You don't get paid a salary. You're literally trying to sell in an environment that is not a great environment, to be honest. So you want to be in these corporate fitness places, so you make that money. But from what I've seen, it's very hard to navigate and get in there. I've been able to, because I think maybe my credentials and my last name, to be honest. So,
unfortunately, what you've experienced and what you said, I think goes across not only the fitness industry, but all industries for people of color, for Black people, because they see, they see the credit. And when you were saying that, it reminded me of myself, because on paper, right? You look great. Your last name is a little different. It's not what you would expect. My first name is Linda, et cetera. And on paper, I look wonderful. But when you get to the interview, eyes in the room kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Like, wait a minute, you Randy? You?
Yeah. Oh, you're Linda. Or you're Dr. Moise. You know, you're like, yeah, it's me. So, unfortunately, I think that that's something that we all have to deal with. It doesn't matter how much credentials you have, how degreed you are, you're still going to come across that. I call it that soft discrimination with various companies and organizations. And then you kind of feel like you have to work 10 times harder because you have to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Although you know you're probably the smartest person in the room, or you know more than your bosses, you have to kind of shrink back because
yeah.
you can't touch on those egos.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing is that because you've had to, you know, perform at that high level, the people that come in that don't, they automatically get intimidated, or they get upset because it's like, well, how does this person know so much? It's like, I mean, it's weird to me.
Yeah, it is. It is very weird, very, very weird. But how would you, from all of those struggles that you've gone through with those organizations and those different companies, what would you say your biggest triumph was in going through all of that? What did all of that kind of teach you, especially as a Black man?
Yes. So a lot of things. Number one, don't rely on people to give you the answers. That's number one, because in the beginning, the people that were giving me the answers, they were giving me the wrong answers purposely. So number one, researching, doing my own research, but also realizing that luckily that we're in a time now that we don't need a company to validate you. Whereas before, you need a company to be like, all right, this is a good worker. Now you can do stuff as far as independent. It ain't easy at all. So a lot of those bad experiences that I experienced, it forced me to start my own thing. And whereas some of the learning how the corporate world operated, I could take some of that over to what I'm doing. But the biggest thing is being in those situations and saying, I don't want to deal with this every day. And it forced me to start my own thing and refuse to fail. So I think that's probably my biggest thing is when I worked at this one place, and I remember because I got out of management, I said, I just want to worry about myself. So I worked at this place. Of course, they were like, oh, would you have problems not being in management? I'm like, no, I just want to worry about myself. So they gave me a little class, and I was paid per person, but it was almost a joke, if you know the game. And this class ended up being their hugest class, to the point they had to pay me more money than they intended to. And I would think that was a great thing for their brand, but I still had little issues going on. And eventually what they were trying to do is write down what I did in the class and teach it in other classes, instead of either asking me to train these other trainers up, instructors up, or just teach more classes. So at that point, it's like, it's not that I'm not good at what I do, because that's what sometimes happens is people try to make you feel like you're not enough. And in some environments, you might feel like that, but if you're doing the work, you really are. You won't know that until you branch out. So I ended up starting my own thing. And that was probably my biggest triumph, because when I got my first client outside independently, it was the best feeling in the world. Like, wow, you know what? This person actually thought enough of me that I didn't need this big name on my chest to invest in me. And then after that, I think all the crazy, because I've had some crazy experiences in this industry for a lot of years in the corporate world. Now it's just like, man, I could have been doing this whole time. Yeah. So that was probably the biggest. It helped me start my own thing.
Yeah. Randy, thank you so much for sharing all that. As you were talking, I can't help but to think about a few things. First and foremost, the segment that Dr. Moise and I did about mindset, it just sounds like even with all of the stuff that you experienced in your profession, the stuff that was unfair, dealing with egos, dealing with people who are actually less gifted than you, there was something about your mindset that you either understood or like drove you to see beyond people's insecurities about your skill set. Like, I'm curious about what was inspiring you, what was like pulling you through those experiences.
Oh, it was probably the most toughest time in my life. The biggest, I say there was times in my life when I was baby depressed, but then I was like depressed. But as I was reading, because I would read books or listen to audiobooks. I spent a lot of time during that time listening to audiobooks of just successful Blacks, just leaders in Blacks that you've heard of, like Malcolm X, someone just not even really listening to some of their interviews and looking at how they were able to articulate themselves so well that they didn't have to even yell. It's just like, but the mindset of how they were thinking. I would read books of just successful people in general, but successful business owners, instructors, and people that are like millionaires, billionaires. And one of the things that helped me get my mind right was that, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. There's other people. Because I was like, man, this has got to be me. When I would explain it to some people, they wouldn't get it. And as I was reading books, I'm just like, man, some of these people had these same situations. And the way they would handle it, it was like, man, this is the clever way to handle it as a verse to, I think one of the things that I feel like Black boys are taught that are kind of toxic is you handle everything with aggression to the point you're not even thinking. It's like, all right, you do me wrong, I'm gonna handle this some type of way. And what I find is that's how people outsmart you out of everything you got. Like I think about the basketball player that somebody said something bad about, and then he like tweeted something like he's about to pull up and do something crazy, and the basketball player lost his job. It's like you lost millions for, and I think that's just like me knowing it's like, oh, I should do this, I should do that. But after reading a lot of these books and listening to videos of people that actually endured and got through these, certain times of just blatant discrimination and not having the mentorship in the beginning, reading these books, it changed my mindset of how to handle things and not being like, all right, I'm just lay down and let this happen to me, or I'm just going to find another way how to make things happen. So I think probably most of the reading and podcasts helped change my mindset. Because before I was struggling in the beginning.
I like that you mentioned about, first of all, that the fact that you said, hey, I was depressed, right? Because a lot of people don't even want to call that out and say, hey, I'm going through a space of depression. Or like you said, as Black boys and as Black men, a lot of times you guys aren't taught to express your feelings or to say that I'm depressed and I need help, or I need to kind of figure out how to get out of this space. Thankfully you had the mind to, read those podcasts and do those sort of things like that in order to kind of help you get out of that space and navigate through that. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of toxicity that's taught to our young boys about not being able to express themselves, and even grown men, like I said, not being able to express themselves and say, raise your hand and say, hey, I need some help because I'm struggling and I need to get out of what I'm getting out of because of all of the trauma that I've been through, because of all of the discrimination that I've been through, because people have always made me feel like I was less than because of the color of my skin, or I didn't come from the right background, et cetera, et cetera.
All true things.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, for the first couple of years, I never spoke to anybody about it. I was just like, and it probably was the worst space ever. And it wasn't until I think I listened to it was a podcast or something, and a guy was talking about, what he was going through. And to be honest, even with my friends, some of my friends that's passed or whatever, it's like something that you could talk to someone else about. But it wasn't until I was watching a podcast one time, and this guy talked about all this stuff he went through. And mentally, I felt it. And I broke down watching it. Thank God no one was there. But I broke down watching it. And then I just realized how important it was to actually, how much it made me feel like better. As far as like, man, I see what this person's going through. I see what they handle. Because, like you said, most men, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to look weak, But the more we talk about it, the more that you can actually normalize it, get past it, figure out the steps to get past it, and be in a better place. And then talk about how you got past it to someone else that needs it.
Yeah, shared experience that there's things that all of us as Black people were born into in this world, and we cannot control it, but we can control how we show up, what we let in, and then learning the tools to navigate this world. But if we don't talk about it as Black people and share our experiences, we can't have those conversations and that dialogue.
Yeah, and I will say, talking to the right people about it too, like definitely, because you talk to the wrong person, it could make you close up tighter. But if you're talking to the right people, it'll be so beneficial to you at the end of the day.
Yeah, you don't want to talk to that person that's going to be like, oh, suck it up, and tell you different things that's not beneficial and probably not helpful for you at that moment. So
I agree. One thing I tell people is like, definitely find, and I was a person that was totally against counselors. What do they call them? Therapists for a long time, until I met the right one. And it was like, okay, this is the difference between talking to, hey, mama, I got a problem. And your mom's just like, you'll be right, boy, versus like, okay, this is where this stems from, talking to a therapist that's really about helping people. And it's kind of like, okay, there's a reason why you hire someone like that to get you in the right space. So
a trained, licensed, skilled therapist.
Yes, I agree.
Because sometimes, like you said, if you're talking to the wrong person, they're coming from their pain, right? They're coming from their problems, their issues, and probably projecting that onto you. And like you said, when you talk to the right person, a licensed therapist, they're more objective. They're trained to kind of guide you in the right direction. And not saying that you can't talk to your friends about things, but you have to kind of understand where I'm talking to my friends about some things, or where I'm struggling and I need to speak to a professional who's going to be objective and who's not going to have any judgments on me about anything that I'm saying to them or anything that I'm going through.
If you're going to talk to someone from your ecosystem, it has to be someone that you feel has wisdom and walks in wisdom. If you're going to talk to someone in your system who's not a therapist. So, I love that idea of talking to the right people.
Yeah, because I think too is that your friends, that certain things you could talk about, and they can be there to kind of be an ear to listen and empathize. But I think sometimes what I found with therapists is that they can make it understandable. Like, oh, you know what? This may give you an inside scoop. So I had a horrible relationship with my father, and talking to a therapist where I was like, after probably like, I hadn't talked to him. He dead now, but about 8 years ago, I hadn't talked to him in like 8 years. But what they were breaking down to me is how some of that stuff with my father had impact on stuff that I was going through today. And I was like, dang, you know what? I never thought about that, and that's why I kind of like at least with therapists, they kind of can break things where stuff is coming from, maybe stemming from, and stuff like that too.
Agreed.
That's so true. Yeah. Doctor, you're like, yep, agree. That's what you do every day. So, Randy, I know that you've worked with adolescents in the past in regards to their personal fitness and helping them. Tell us about that experience in working with adolescents, how you feel personal fitness in helping them with that can kind of help them, like you said, with their mental health, with that getting them to that mentorship and getting them to the next level of where they need to be.
Yeah, so I think it's great for them. I actually got a troubled youth boot camp on the north side, and as a person that grew up with all boys, they gave me all girls. So it's definitely different for me. They gave me fashion lessons and everything. They talked about, but one of the things that some of those girls still talk to me to this day on, just being there for them to ask real questions, to get real, to hear things that are actually help them, for me to help them plan stuff out. But they're in an environment where it's like, this is, when people think about fitness in the beginning before they get started, it's like, okay, it's like playtime, it's like relax time. And so they let their guard down a little bit. And that's the cool thing about me, is when people leave work, they come into the gym and it's like, this is time for me where I get to work on myself and no one else. So what I found with them is, while we worked out, and the sad thing about some of these kids is that they're afraid to try anything because they're afraid to fail. And in the gym, it's okay to fail because, you're supposed to do 10 push-ups, but you did 5. But eventually you'll be able to do 10 and it's exciting. So for them, it's like they can fail in there. They can be encouraged to do things they never thought they could do before. I had girls do things that they thought they couldn't do that I knew they could do, and I wait to them do it, and then they would do it and break down and cry because they didn't think they would do it. But also in that environment, it allows them to speak freely about what they have going on in the world. And that's where I like that I was able to interject on, okay, this doesn't make any sense. They at one point they used to watch these, this is horrible. They used to watch videos on YouTube of girls just fighting each other. And they would be so excited. And I'm like, why y'all watching that? And they're like, ooh, I would have did this. Why? Girls ain't supposed to be fighting. And I would joke with them, like, no guy wants no girl to look like they've been fighting their whole life or whatever. It's just like, why do you want to do that? Or it's they wanted all these great things in life. And it's like, well, if you want these great things in life, you can't be doing this dumb stuff. You can't be missing school. You got to want to go to college or get a good job or find a trade, and you can create those things. So them hearing that and being in an environment where they could trust me helped a lot of them. A lot of them are either in college now, or when some of them actually graduated college now. It's a while ago. Some of them graduated college. Some of them are working jobs, and they still come by, ask me questions about certain things. So I think, especially in that fitness field for adolescents, it's a time that they can actually have someone they could talk to and ask questions where they feel like it's like someone they can trust, and open up about, certain things. I think one time there was a 16-year-old I was working with that was dating someone older than me, which is too old, and I'm just like, that's a problem, and explaining to her why that's a problem. And luckily, she got away from that. But I think it's also they get that the girls, they got a male mentorship, but even for guys that I've had, it's like they get that mentorship because there's some things that I don't think people explain that Black men will go through. And for me, it's kind of like, oh yeah, you feel entitled. The world's making you feel entitled through high school. But let me tell you something. You ain't entitled to nothing. No matter how hard you work, you might not get what you work for, So it's like, you really need to be learning as much as you can, learning how to think, so even for the younger guys, and they want to be like, oh, I should have did this. Like I said, a lot of those toxic traits that they're taught, when they get to hear it from someone older, it's like, oh, that's dumb. Let me tell you some stories why. Oh, I did that. Let me tell you why this didn't work out. So that way they can remember those things. And as they get older, they'll just be ahead of the game as far as like not running that cycle that a lot of us did to get to where we got to.
Yeah. And Randy, as you talk, I can't help but to go back in that when I was I think it was by the time I was in high school, middle school, I realized gym was the first time I made the connection of, I can tell my body what to do. You're telling me I have to do, remember them funky miles we had to do, Linda, when we had to do these crazy miles, and I don't know how I had enough oxygen to do that then. But you had to do all these things because the coach told you to do it. But I'm like, but I can't do it. Like, but you can do it. And I was like, okay, well, you tell me I can do it. I've never tried, but let me try. So me being the introspective kid I'm like, wow. So like you told me I could do something I've never done before. I'm going to tell my body to do it, and I'm going to try. Was the first time I realized that I can tell my mind and body, I can tell it to do the same message so it can be to my benefit. That was the first, and it actually changed my grades. And that actually got me sports and things that elevated my body. So hearing you talk about how your role as a trainer can look like mentorship, can look like mental health, right choices. For those reasons, at the school that Madam Moise is creating, we are like trying to incorporate wellness in the form of like mental health, physical health, all the emotional health. So we thought it made sense that that should be a class that you have to take, and you're learning how to regulate your emotions. You're learning about good touch, bad touch. You're learning about all these things that all of us had to sometimes learn the hard way or on the streets because we didn't get the proper information. So here, you said just like kind of like reaffirmed, Dr. Moise, that our vision of making it a class that you must take, it makes sense, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of those girls, they're doing the things that they wanted to do because they learned. And I'll tell you a funny thing is, these girls could talk about everything that wasn't important. And one day I remember asking them to order a pizza one time, and all of them were so afraid to order a pizza. And then they're like, well, what do I say? What do I? And I'm like, you should never be, you tell them what you want. But I'm just thinking like, you could talk about everything, but you're afraid to order a pizza. And it's like, all right, there's some things we need to worry. This is some things we need to work on. So y'all know when you're out, you're not afraid to speak up on things. You're not afraid to ask for what you want. But yeah, like you said, a lot of them were able to know that in their mind that whatever I want to do, I can do it if I put my mind to it. You know, the simple or whatever saying they have there.
Wow. Well, Randy, you kind of like you're answering all of our questions, like just naturally. I love it. But just to reiterate, I guess I'm curious, like, how can we do a better job of promoting health and wellness in our schools for all stakeholders, staff, students, and parents?
You know, I know it can't be possible, but I think that for especially teachers, I mean, they definitely should have even if it's 30 minutes, you know, for example, like I go to these corporate companies and for an hour, they get off work and they do like a boot camp with me, or some of them do yoga, and yoga is king in those places, by the way. But it's just like, they feel so re-energized. Now they get their butts kicked, but when they go back, after they're done, not one before, but after they're done, they're just like, man, you know, I got my energy back, my mind is back. And I think even with teachers, like I give them praise because that's mentally exhausting, but you're basically shaping the leaders, right? So them having that time to kind of work on themselves. Like I said, fitness is a place that you really get to focus on yourself. And that's why it's great that you put in that mental health side and those other sides, because that's the time for you. So it'd be nice if those teachers had time to do that, you know, or maybe it might even be after school. They have that access to like a program where they can work out to something. And with the students, I feel like it's definitely important, especially for, you know, the students that are afraid to do stuff because they don't want to try any sports. They don't want to try anything because they're afraid that they can't do it. And it's like, no matter what shape you are and how much you weigh, you know, some of them become empowered. One of the girls I have, she's 14, and she was a bigger girl. But when she came into my gym, actually her mom worked out with her, which was great. And with her mom, as she started to work out, she's like, man, I need this. But with this girl, she came in with low self-esteem. But as she saw what she can do, like her attitude, how she feels about herself is like 10 times better now than it ever was. When I see her now, it just makes me smile because you know, she is happy with who she is. You know, she wants to be better, but she's happy with who she is. So I think that people making that class mandatory for kids is just a part of that mindset that's going to make them be like, okay, whatever I want to do. I don't want to do this right now, but all of a sudden it's going to be like, ooh, I can do this. Oh man, I'm good at this, you know, and whatever they want to do, that mindset will sat in for that. So, yeah.
So what would you say to the many people that say that eating healthy and exercising is hard? And I know a second part to that is for a lot of people that are in poverty, right? I always say poverty is a big business because you have McDonald's, you have the dollar menu, you have all of this, but when you look at your healthier foods are more expensive, right? So and in your health and you know the other foods, when you're in poverty, you're trying to get what you can get. Whatever costs is $1, and it's usually all of the processed meats, processed foods, the sugary stuff, all of the stuff that's bad for you is what you can afford because of wherever you are, you know, in life, or you're having a hard time, etc. But what advice do you have, one, for people that say that eating healthy and exercising is hard, as well as what do you say to those families who are struggling, right? They're struggling to put food on the table, but they can't necessarily go into Whole Foods because, you know, you spend $50 and $150 in Whole Foods, and you're like, what did I just get?
Right.
It's all healthy stuff. Like all of the healthy stuff is expensive. So what advice do you have for those lower income families, those struggling families that want to eat healthy, but they can't?
Oh yeah, that's a good one because number one, not only do they have all these foods that are bad for you in the neighborhood, but they taste good. It's like, ooh, I want to go here. Ooh, I want to eat this. I want to eat that. And I feel like one, it's just now with the iPhone or Android, you got access to so much information. And it's like, what made me have to get out of that mindset, even though I'm in fitness, because I still love that stuff, is I read about what it does to the body. So, and especially when you're trying to teach, you know, your parents that and their parents that, because it's always was taught as a reward to, oh snap, we're going to McDonald's today. It's a celebration, you know. But with those families, because it's very hard in areas, because it's definitely food deserts in a lot of places where you gotta walk to get to a nice little trip to get to where you need to get to. But I think that even if you're going to Jules or whatever place that you can get some real food at, like some good vegetables, start with that. Invest in a juicer, because some people don't want to eat their vegetables, but it's like you need them in your body. Invest in a juicer and maybe a blender, because what happens is now you can have fun online, look at nice little recipes you could make. You get the fruit and vegetables you need, and not only is it fun to kind of do that with maybe your kids, but it also teaches them that, okay, well, now vegetables aren't that bad, or this is not that bad. And when it comes to food in general, it's like, it's better to shop and then make your own stuff that you want to make. Like, instead of going to McDonald's and buying this Big Mac with, you don't know what's in it. You don't know what's in it. And there's, you know, they've always talked about there are chemicals in it that make you addicted to wanting it. And I know that firsthand. And it's almost better for you.
That they have that Burger King commercial now. Burger King took all of these ingredients out of their Whopper and their meal. I'm like, what is even all of that stuff that you guys have?
Yeah.
Like, what in the world?
I'm surprised you don't have a 3 orange off from all the crap we ate back in the day.
Right. and you know, the thing is you still have to be careful, because these fast food places are realizing that people are becoming more health conscious. And what they're doing is they might rename something, an ingredient, and be like, oh, we got this. Oh, we got vegan Whoppers. But it's like, look what's in that vegan Whopper before you think about getting it. And I know it's easy because it's what, $2, $3, you know. But if you're trying to really change your lifestyle, you can really, if you're thinking in sense of money, you probably can buy groceries that will last you longer if you bought your groceries and made the stuff. Even though I know time is of the essence, but you probably would save more money. I know that for sure. Well, yeah, I know that for sure. And even to the point that so many people spend so much money in fast food, if they really, because sometimes they think they're being cheap, but at the end of the week, if they calculate how much money they spent, it's more expensive than maybe 2 or 3 weeks worth of groceries, you know. And at that pace, you might as well just get a meal delivery system delivered to you.
And Randy, as you're talking, it's interesting how you talk about people's priorities, and we're talking about money and we're talking about convenience. But at the end of the day, like how you invest your time and what you put in your body, like your health and your time are your biggest currencies. So if you're worried about nickel and diamond, like a $3 Big Mac, when you could create the time to stay well and stay alive longer and make a salad or make a turkey burger, then their priorities is not right. So I love how you're talking about the priority of like, you can live a long time and live well if you are more mindful of what you eat.
Yeah, and you know what the thing is I think about that most people aren't being educated in what they're eating. And so they don't know. It's like, why can't I eat McDonald's every day? And it's because they don't know. Let me let you read this article. Why can't I drink soda every day? I mean, you can, but let me let you know. Don't you want to look good? Don't you want to move good?
Randy, I had a colleague. This is somebody who's a therapist who's in their late 30s. And I asked them what was their goal, like, because we were doing yoga together. And I was like, are you trying to eat to nourish the body or to get full? She thought I was asking her a trick question. This is an educated woman, a woman of color. She's like, oh, so I'm not supposed to just be full. I'm like, no, you're supposed to like eat nutritious things to elevate your body. Like,
right.
And not be like gorged. Yeah.
And I think too, like you said, Randy, it's about education, because I think a lot of the people within our community don't know, okay, I need to have these proper foods in proper food groups in my diet, or because, we're used to the big Sunday dinners and the fried foods and this and that and the third, but
you're getting excited about it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with eating that, right? Like you can eat that every now and again. It's not saying, oh, you have to deprive yourself of good food. It's just, you have to do it in moderation. And that can't be your everyday. But I think that you're absolutely right when you say that it's about the education and educating our community about the healthy meals, because at the end of the day, if you're trying to nickel and dime, then in the long run, it's going to cost you more in your health, in your medical bills, with diabetes, with all of the other health issues that come with not being healthy overall.
Yeah. So Dr. Moise, you invest now or you invest later? Like you invest now and stay well,
and the thing is
later.
And the thing is you really investing now too. And my thing is, like I said, I'm from the South, so food makes me happy, especially the bad stuff. But when I think about it, the reason why I eat, because sometimes people look at me and they see me, I might have like a pre-made salad or something like that. And my clients would be like, oh, see, you can eat that. You like eating that. No, I would like to eat some ribs and some other stuff, but I want to look good. I want to be healthy and I want to function properly. And even to that point of when you're eating right, it does help with your mood. It does help you, it does help battle depression and all those other things. That you'd be surprised that it bother you. Don't feel as tired, So that's some of the things that you can see in the beginning, but long term is you don't want to have all these health issues because of I've eaten this fried food, heart conditions and stuff like that, So yeah, you definitely, and that's like you said, I'm definitely investing in, 10, 20 years from now, I still want to be able to get out and run. I don't want to have to worry about, is my heart going to fail me at any point and stuff like that. And that does start with what we're putting into our bodies.
Yeah. And I love that connection of getting people to know like what we do now matters. Like what you do in the present affects your future, you know, and all of those.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, Randy, like what words of wisdom would you offer aspiring wellness professionals?
That's a good one. Like I said, do your own research. Don't allow people to give you the answers. Now, be grateful of anybody that really gives you the game, but also do your own research. Don't be afraid to be creative. Like as you're learning stuff, apply it for yourself. Definitely network, but study this stuff enough that you can validate yourself and share it. So that way, you know, if you're confident in yourself, and also if you're in the wellness industry, learn business, because I think a lot of fitness and wellness people don't know enough about business. But definitely learn business. Definitely learn as much as you can. Don't be afraid to spend money on education. And at the end of the day, have fun teaching, and don't forget about yourself, because a lot of fitness and wellness instructors are so busy teaching it that they start to forget about applying it to themselves and why they enjoyed it in the first place. So
self-care again, Dr. Moise.
Exactly. Definitely self-care for everyone. Even if you are the fitness person, you need to
right. Yes.
That you're doing what you need to do for yourself. So I want to ask you this, Randy. At the end of the day, 50 years from now, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, that's a good thing. That's an interesting thing. I think what I want my legacy to be is for a couple of things. Starting with the fitness thing, I definitely want instructors to realize if they have the drive, that they can create whatever they want to create for themselves in the industry, whatever programs they want to create, whatever type of wealth they want to create. And one thing they'll know is they'll be able to look like, hey, you know that dude 50 years ago, he got this little program that you read, and it makes me feel like this is what I can actually do the things that I want to do. And it separates and they learn from my mistakes. So the things that I had to learn in the industry, I don't want them to take as long as it took me to learn. And I want to see more successful Black entrepreneurs in the fitness and wellness industry, but in every industry, but especially the fitness and wellness industry, because I think a lot of them are caught in a bubble that is like a rat race going nowhere. But also just people who's, you know, the way that I give information to somebody, I just want them to pass it along. The way I look out for people, I want them to pass it along. So 50 years from now, I want them to look at my gyms and be like, oh, those gyms are great, but the person that created them was a great person and helped other people get to wherever. Help this gym over here, their owner create something, and that person there creates something. So yeah, change some lives in the process, I guess.
Well, I certainly feel inspired, Randy.
Definitely. And I will definitely say that, you know, shameless plug, Randy is my trainer. So, and going back to, and I'll be looking at Randy, giving him the side eye every time I go.
Yes, she does.
What? You want me to do what? Are you crazy? Like, what is going on right now? But I will say that Randy has taught me that I could do things that I didn't think that I was capable of doing, right? So I think, Randy, what am I at, 190 right now with the deadlifts?
Yep.
And I'm like,
yep.
Yeah, I was like, you want me to do what and how many? And I can't do that, Randy. He's like, no, you got it, you got it, you got it. And I was like, okay.
Yup.
So I would definitely say that, and it's changed my mindset, right? And I mean, I already had a growth mindset, but then when it came to things that I know that I'm not good at, right? And he's like, no, you got this. You can do this. I'm gonna help you, even if you do one, and then the next time you do 3, 4, 5 reps, it builds up that self-esteem. It's like, okay, I can do this, and you're not afraid to fail because it's a safe space where even if I'm trying to do that jump box jump and I fall, or I'm looking at it for like 5 minutes and he's like, just jump. It's mine. And I'm trying to jump. I'm like, no, I might fall. And he's like, no, you got it. You can do it. And then you eventually do it. You're like, oh, I could do it. It was just my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that part about training because, training is teaching, but it's also, what people can do. And for me, I get a little chuckle inside where I've trained someone to do this certain exercise. So when they come to it, they look at me crazy. And I already know they can do it. And I wait till they get their mind right. And then they do it. And I just laugh because I'm like, yep, I know you can do it. But they get over a hump that they maybe thought they couldn't have.
Crazy. Like, what? No. I'm not gonna do that. I can't do that.
And then she sends me pictures and videos. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes, I was like, this is what he said I'm going to do next. He lost his mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if he's and I'm sure you can do it. Have a hot bath ready after you're done, though.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Well, Randy, I want to definitely thank you for taking the time to talk to us about your experiences, definitely as a Black man in this industry and just in general in life, and some of the wisdom that you dropped on us about health and fitness and overcoming depression and using that fuel as a motivation to motivate others and want to see, other fitness people in the industry succeed, because I think health and fitness is something that's very important in our community, and it doesn't because we're dying young for no reason.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it's because, one, we're not educated. Two, there's a lot of barriers that we have to overcome. Barriers that we can't control because it's outside barriers, and other barriers that we can control through changing our mindsets and doing different things and trying different things. Because I look at even my parents, I felt like they died very young. If their health was better, they would have still been living to this day. But because they didn't have, that education, or they didn't have access to healthcare or the great foods, or even have that mindset of, I can't eat this every day, right? So, but I think it's very important for the work that you're doing within the community, because I know you've got a gym on the South Side, you got a gym on the North Side, and all of the people that you're helping and the kids that you're helping, help them shape themselves and change their mindset. So I think that's why I wanted to have you on here, because I felt like, what you're contributing is kind of very important, and it was a very important story for others to hear.
I'm glad I could get on here. I enjoyed myself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Hill, any last thoughts that you want to add on?
No, I'm very grateful, Randy, just to meet someone like you who edifies people with their words and allows them to push past their limits.
Well, nice. Well, thank you.
Right.